The original opening in Avengers Infinity War is a shocking one, displaying the real legitimate threat that Thanos is, as he begins to enact his journey to collect all 6 of the fabled Infinity Stones. The opening of Infinity War showcases Thanos decimating the Asgardian ship known as the Statesman, besting both Loki and Thor, killing Loki and half of the remaining Asgardian. What's compelling about this sequence though is that Thanos is already in possession of one of the Infinity Stones, that being the Power Stone. The last we saw of the Power Stone was in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, where the Guardians left it in the hands of the Nova Corps on the planet known as Xandar. Many fans were actually quite disappointed that we did not get to see Thanos collect the Power Stone, and therefore did not see the entirety of his journey. And although we do know exactly how Thanos came into possession of the Power Stone thanks to dialogue by Thor and what Thanos himself ultimately reveals, we do not get to see him collect all 6 of the stones personally. Following the release of Endgame and Infinity War, however, the Russo brothers came out and explained exactly what happened when Thanos got the Power Stone, as well as some concept art of Thanos retrieving the Power Stone, revealing that this would have been the moment that they would have introduced the character known as Nova, who Marvel apparently had plans to do a solo film for later down the line, something that we'll discuss in just a moment. But that Thanos ultimately defeated Nova and the rest of the Nova Corps, obtaining the Power Stone for himself and decimating the planet of Xandar, with this actually being storyboarded and this meant to be the actual opening moments of Avengers Infinity War, with the Russo brothers later going on to state that they wanted the opening to be more impactful and to have our characters have a direct state in the opening of Infinity War, believing that Xandar and the story going on there was simply a little bit too far removed, a sentiment that I ultimately agree with. Before we explain further though, let's talk about the character of Nova, as well as plans that Marvel may have to introduce Nova into the MCU in his own solo outing. Marvel Studios appears to have an uncanny ability to take vague and widely unknown figures from their comic pantheon and create incredibly compelling, complex characters. They oftentimes become fan favorites in the film universe. Most of the Avengers roster that we saw in the 2012 lineup for the unified team was comprised of B-list or C-list background characters from the comics, seeing as the most famous Marvel Comics heroes at the time include the X-Men, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four, all of whom Marvel did not have the rights to back in the day. Thus began the era of the MCU, continually turning relatively forgettable heroes into instant fan favorites, now branching into the likes of Shang-Chi, Moon Knight, and Blade, who are all widely regarded as obscure no-names until now. With the MCU's propensity to expand as vast and as wide as it has been shown to do, many fans have been avidly awaiting the debuts of some of their favorite comic heroes. With the likes of Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Ms. Marvel on the near horizon, many fans have been speculating as to who else might show up in the near future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially with the myriad of untitled mystery projects currently rumored to be in development, and with the MCU's tried and tested formula for turning even the most obscure heroes into a hit, nobody is off the table, and seemingly anyone from Marvel's extensive lineup is fair game. Throughout the course of the past few years, several fan favorite names have been thrown around with varying degrees of enthusiasm and support, but one name in particular seems to have had the seeds for his arrival planted for a while now, and many fans have been avidly awaiting the arrival of none other than Nova. So while there is currently no confirmation regarding a Nova project at this time, let's take a look at some of the strongest evidence to support this imminent arrival, as well as cover why he is one of the most likely heroes to arrive in the MCU and why his debut might be long overdue. Perhaps the strongest piece of evidence is the fact that there are more than half a dozen untitled Marvel projects currently in some stage of development, and while rumors and hopes cycle between the likes of Deadpool 3, a mutant-centric X-Men project, or some adaptation of the Young Avengers, there is an increasing likelihood that a Nova-centric film or Disney Plus series may be in the works, especially given the current state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When asked about the Nova project in January of this year, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige responded to a question regarding which iteration we are most likely to see from the comics. In the comics, Nova is a legendary character whose mantle is passed between multiple figures. The original Nova, Richard Rider, ends up passing the mantle down to Sam Alexander, both of whom are fan favorite iterations of the character. The question has been brought up as to how they might introduce the character, with some fans wanting the original Richard Rider to live up to his tenure as a hero for multiple years, before eventually passing down the name and mantle to others, while some fans want to take the Ant-Man approach and give the title of Nova straight to Sam Alexander. When asked which one would be the first to appear and whether Marvel plans on beginning with Richard Rider or jumping straight into Sam Alexander, Kevin Feige hinted that there are plans to include both of the most famous Novas, indicating that the groundwork is currently being laid to introduce the character at some point down the line, though just how far is unclear. Nova has also been rumored to make an appearance as far back as 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, as a bulk of the movie takes place on Xandar and directly involves the Nova Corps. The Nova Corps, both in the MCU and in the original source material, serve as a sort of intergalactic police force from where the character's origin story began. In the opening minutes of Infinity War, we learned that Thanos collected the Power Stone from Xandar before the beginning of the movie, and we later learn in the film that he, quote, decimated the planet according to Thor. Many have speculated that the character might be the last survivor of the Nova Corps, and might use the remaining technology to become his own hero as the last of the Nova Corps operatives. We do know that in the early drafting phases of Infinity War, there was a scene that depicted this incursion by Thanos and his forces, and though we are unsure how thoroughly this idea was developed, we do know that it was ultimately cut to keep in tune with the surprising and devastating nature of the opening that we got aboard the Statesman. Though it seems that the prime window for the most effective debut has passed, this event could largely serve as the catalyst for his journey and character development. Perhaps we are able to see a flashback to the sequence at some point during the project, getting another look at the Mad Titan's destructive capabilities, as well as seeing how Nova responded to the situation. In this case, it would most likely be the Richard Rider iteration of the character that survived the onslaught on Xandar, ultimately passing the mantle of the last Nova officer down to Sam Alexander when the time is ultimately right. There is another popular fan theory that the Rider iteration of Nova was off-world at the time of the incursion, and returned home to find the entirety of his homeworld annihilated by Thanos. This could explain why he wasn't present for the final conflict in Endgame, as he could have been out of the loop and not known of the circumstances behind the fall of his people. But again, these are just fan theories and fun speculation as of now. If Marvel opts to take the Ant-Man route, wherein they give the legacy character the first solo outing like they did with Scott Lang, then perhaps Sam Alexander comes across the last survivor of Xandar who passes down the mantle and the technology on his deathbed, similarly to Green Lantern in DC. This could give Sam Alexander direct access to Nova Corps tech, as well as ensure that he has no personal connection to Thanos, and hence, why there is no explanation necessary as to why he wasn't present in Endgame as well. Though he could have still theoretically been present, his character's journey carries less risk as he is not personally affected by Thanos' actions, and does not demand closure for this loss. If we find that the character has a personal vendetta against Thanos, his arc might be unsatisfying for viewers, if he is not allowed to bring his journey to an appropriate end. But again, this is speculative as of now, and simply a fun medium to discuss different possibilities for interesting storylines and plot threads. But anyway, my friends, would you like to see Nova appear in the MCU in the near future? And if so, would you prefer that they give Richard Rider a few years as Nova before passing down the mantle? Or would you prefer that they take an Ant-Man approach and go straight to Sam Alexander? Also, what are your thoughts on the Russo brothers revealing the original opening for Avengers Infinity War? And which opening do you ultimately prefer? As always, my friends, hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.